Hey guys, tonight we're starting something truly ancient and entirely ridiculous. You're standing ankle deep in the blistering sands of Egypt, not modern Egypt with its tour buses and souvenir shops, but the old one. The one where the sun doesn't set so much as it collapses onto the desert, and every grain of sand feels like it's trying to crawl into your shoes to stage a tiny revolution. You're wrapped in linen that itches in all the wrong places, probably laced with crocodile oil and optimism. Your sunscreen smells suspiciously like burnt fish and clay, and let's be honest, you look fabulous but profoundly underhydrated. Still, you're not here for comfort. You're here for secrets. Because tonight you're on the trail of something whispered through thousands of years. Not just hieroglyphs, those charming doodles with owls, eyeballs, and zigzags, but a deeper code. A hidden language. A secret system used by the Pharaohs to pass power, protect mystery, and probably insult each other with style. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. No pressure. Just know that even ancient scribes would have tapped, like, with a goose feather stylus if they were into it. Drop a comment with where you're listening from, your city, your time zone, maybe even your couch coordinates. And tell me what time it is for you. I like to imagine who's drifting off where. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking, no dragging, yourself across the desert like your legs filed a complaint with gravity. The sun is dropping, casting everything in that burnt orange glow that looks great on postcards and terrible on sweat. Then you see it, half buried in sand, a black granite door. No sign. No guard. No gift shop. Just a slab leaning into the dune like it's been waiting. Your fingers brush the surface. It's unexpectedly cool, like touching an ancient refrigerator full of royal regrets. And then, click, a quiet sound, like time remembering something it forgot. The door shifts open with a sigh, revealing a dark corridor yawning beneath the earth. Inside it's cool. Not desert night cool. Tomb cool. Sleep cool. You step forward and your sandals echo across the stone floor like they're apologizing for disturbing the dead. The walls on either side bloom with carvings, layers of figures, gods, birds, and symbols that feel like they're watching you, or waiting for you to read between the lines. And then, you spot something strange. It's a symbol, sure, another owl perched on a loaf of bread. But below that there's a market basket? No, seriously. You rub your eyes. Still there. Either the ancient Egyptians invented grocery shopping aesthetics, or you've found something new. As you walk further, patterns begin to emerge. A scarab curling into itself. 3 waves rising upward. A flute, yes, a flute, sticking out of what looks like a bowl. They don't belong here. And yet they're everywhere. You reach a chamber, quiet and dusty and wide like the inside of a forgotten thought. Stone pillars lean slightly, like they've grown tired of holding secrets. Scrolls of papyrus lie scattered across the floor like someone hosted a very irresponsible book club. You pick up one scroll, burned at the edges, cracked with age, and unroll it. Your hands tremble just slightly, and not because the papyrus is delicate. Because your gut says you're about to read something you shouldn't understand. Symbols cover the scroll. Some familiar, the sun disk, the ibis, the ankh. But others? They don't belong. A 6-pointed star. A trident. A heart. You blink. Did ancient Egyptians send valentines? This isn't standard temple text. It's coded. You see repetitions, scarab, waves, flute, over and over. The structure suggests intention, message, maybe even encryption. Historians still debate whether ancient Egyptians developed a layered cipher hidden within their hieroglyphs. Some say the language was too sacred for alteration. Others whisper of priestly texts that even pharaohs couldn't fully decode. But what you're holding, it doesn't care what the historians think. You study the repeating sequence again. Scarab, waves, flute. Is it music? A recipe? A royal in-joke? You won't know. Not yet. But something has clearly been built beneath the writing, a secret stitched into the symbols like embroidery you only see in the right light. A second language hiding behind the first. And then you notice something carved into the wall beside you. A map, no, a pattern. You have to tilt your head 43 degrees to even make sense of it. It's like a maze built by someone who really didn't want you to understand directions. It points to another site. Deeper in the desert. Maybe a temple. Maybe a banquet hall. Maybe both. This is ancient Egypt. They really loved multitasking. You stand, scroll in hand, suddenly aware that you're now part of something far bigger than just archaeology. You've stumbled into a game left behind by people who loved symbols more than sleep. You exit the chamber, not knowing that ahead of you lies a labyrinth of cryptic patterns, forgotten rituals, and sarcasm carved in stone. And no, it's not just your brain playing tricks on you because you're tired and dusty and a little hungry. Something is calling to you. But for now, all you can do is walk toward the next clue. The sun is gone now, swallowed by the desert, leaving behind a sky that flickers with stars and questions. You've walked for hours, or maybe centuries, time's sort of optional out here. And just when your legs are about to file for retirement, you see it. A low rise, barely distinguishable from the dunes, marked by broken stones and something oddly rectangular poking out of the sand. You kneel, brushing away centuries of windblown grit, and there it is, a fragment of what looks like a wall, etched with the same strange sequence. Scarab. Waves. Flute. Oh, great. Your friends are back. You pull the scroll from earlier out of your satchel. It's warm now, like it's been absorbing secrets. Or maybe your body heat. Honestly, you've been carrying it under your arm for hours, so that makes sense. Either way, something's changing. The map carved into the tomb wall led you here, to what used to be a storage chamber of sorts. Not for grain or treasures, but for texts. You can tell because half of the room is filled with chunks of broken papyrus tubes, the ancient Egyptian equivalent of filing cabinets, if filing cabinets were fragile, cylindrical, and coated in the smell of dry ink and camel breath. The room is half collapsed. You step carefully over rubble, listening to the echo of your own breathing and wondering why no one ever builds their secrets on ground level. At the far end, illuminated by your flickering lamp, you find something not crushed under centuries of disinterest. A stone plinth, waist-high, with a wooden chest placed neatly on top. It's locked, of course. Because of course it is. But just beneath the chest, carved faintly into the plinth, is a line of hieroglyphs that don't quite fit. It reads, "He who hears the silent rhythm shall find the door." Because that's not creepy at all. You sit down, back against the wall, and unroll the scroll again. Your eyes trace the patterns. Scarab. Waves. Flute. The flute. You remember now, there was a depiction of someone playing a flute on one of the temple walls, but the melody was drawn as symbols rather than sound. A musical script. A code within the music. Music as language. Because nothing says, restful evening, like decoding a dead civilization's mixtape. In the corner of the room, hidden behind a loose stone, you find it, a narrow slit in the wall, about the size of a thick reed. You slide your fingers along the edge and feel something click beneath the surface. A hollow channel opens with a quiet hiss, revealing a bone flute. Carved delicate, still intact. And even weirder, it looks used. You lift it, not even sure what you're doing anymore, and gently blow. The sound is low, trembling, like a distant whisper trying not to wake its parents. Then you play again, this time mimicking the three-note pattern etched into your brain. Low. High. Medium. Scarab. Waves. Flute. The ground doesn't shake. No lightning crashes. But the lock on the wooden chest clicks softly, and you hear the faintest flutter of air behind the plinth. The chest creaks open. Inside is another scroll, but this one is pristine. No burns, no fraying. As if it was placed here yesterday by someone with clean hands and perfect handwriting. And drawn on its surface are not symbols, but numbers. That's right. Numbers. Now, here's where things get tricky. Egyptians used a number system based on units of 10. Simple enough, right? Except this scroll isn't using Egyptian numerals. It's using something different. You stare at it puzzled. The numbers repeat in sets of 5. 3, 9, 12, 3, 9. You blink. 3, 9, 12. Could this be a calendar? A time stamp? A set of coordinates? Your brain starts connecting the dots, which, granted, feels like trying to solve a crossword puzzle written by someone who hated vowels. You flip back to the earlier scroll. On the back, faintly written in what looks like pomegranate juice or regret, are 5 names. Each name is followed by a symbol, then a number. What if the code isn't in the symbols? What if it's in who used them? You remember something that bent your brain earlier. A carving in the temple where the high priest didn't just sign his name, but added his personal version of certain hieroglyphs. Like an emoji signature. His scarab had extra legs. His wave symbols bent sideways. His flute looked like a spoon. A spoon. This might be the first instance of encrypted handwriting. Historians still argue whether individuals in ancient Egypt had personal, glyph dialects, ways of writing standard symbols with unique flair. Some scholars say no. Others say, have you met humans? Of course they personalized their owl drawings. But what you're looking at right now suggests something even more strange. A shared system. A code among insiders. You turn to the wall behind the plinth. It's plain. Almost boring. Until you angle your lamp just right. There, faint but deliberate, you see it, a carving of 5 figures seated around what appears to be a drum. Not a military drum. A story drum. Each one is holding a different object, a reed pen, a bull, a lotus flower, a flute, and a small carved lion. Underneath them is a line of symbols. They're the same as on the scroll. You're not just looking at a riddle. You're looking at a council. 5 individuals. Each using the code. You write down the numbers from the pristine scroll. Then, with painful slowness, you match them to each figure's position. It takes time. It takes imagination. It also takes 2 figs and a handful of dates, which you inhale like a very dusty raccoon. Suddenly it clicks. The numbers are sequence keys. Each one refers to a position in a larger narrative. The scarab isn't just a symbol, it's a marker. A chapter heading. The waves are sentence breaks. The flute indicates tonal changes. You're not just looking at language, you're looking at rhythm. In ancient Egypt, rhythm wasn't just for music. It was used to time rituals, chants, and it seems, codes. A secret language based not on alphabet, but cadence. It's why so many carvings appear to repeat symbols. It's not redundancy. It's tempo. Which means, the symbols aren't just what you say. They're how you say it. You look again at the scroll. The final line reads, "To know the Pharaoh's secret, speak like the Nile." And just like that, it hits you. The Nile didn't rush. It flowed. Slow, deliberate, constant. So maybe the key isn't in translation. Maybe it's in pace. You step back from the wall, from the scrolls, from the chest. Somewhere, deep inside this maze of stone and silence, is a voice that only answers when you speak its rhythm. Not louder. Not faster. Just right. Like water sliding through time. And you? You're starting to hear it. The air thickens as you follow the map's next mark, this one carved with extra flair. Like the scribe had a moment of dramatic flair and zero supervision. The line curves toward a distant ruin, tucked in a crescent of sandstone cliffs. You reach it just as the first brush of dawn stains the eastern sky, soft and rosy, like a god's apology for another hot day. The structure is half buried, ancient even by Egypt's ridiculous standards. The walls lean like tired librarians, each stone a sentence in some unfinished paragraph. You step over a collapsed column and through what might have once been a ceremonial arch, now broken and hosting a family of sleepy desert mice. Inside, the room is cool and hushed. Your footsteps echo like someone clapping slowly out of pity. You stop. There, crouched beside a wall of faded murals, is a figure. Human. Very much alive. He doesn't look up when you enter. His back is bent like a question mark, shoulders narrow and twitchy. Draped in cloth the color of dusk, he's murmuring to the wall as if expecting it to answer back. You clear your throat. No response. You try again, louder this time, and his head jerks up. His eyes are sharp, far too awake for this hour. He blinks like he's returned from a long nap in the fourth dimension. "You're not supposed to be here," he says, and somehow you know, this guy hasn't spoken to another human in years. Maybe centuries, if we're being flexible with time. "I'm just following the rhythm," you say, not quite sure why. He stares. Then smiles. A little. It's the kind of smile that says, "Ah, another fool with dreams of pharaohs and bedtime glory." His name, he tells you, is Nebu. Or at least, that's the name he uses when talking to walls and birds. He was once a royal scribe, one of the best, he claims, though you suspect he also grades himself generously. Nebu points to the mural in front of him. 5 figures, again. The council. Only this time, they're depicted inside a hall, each seated beneath an arch of stars. Beneath them runs a line of text in alternating gold and red ink. "You see it?" Nebu asks, eyes glittering. "The way the ink shifts? The timing of meaning." You nod because it's easier than disagreeing with a man who's clearly had conversations with cobras. He waves you over to a slab on the ground, flat, dusty, and stained with what looks like pomegranate again. Maybe these ancient code masters just really loved that fruit. "This is where the pattern was tested," he says. "Before the code was sealed." You raise an eyebrow. "Sealed?" Nebu nods solemnly. "The pharaoh didn't just want it hidden. He wanted it forgotten. buried in rhythm and ritual, locked in syllables that only danced when spoken in a certain tone. You mean, like a song? He grins now, all teeth and mischief. Yes. But only if you sing it with your bones. Which, let's be honest, is the creepiest sentence you've heard all day. He teaches you how to read the rhythm marks, tiny strokes beneath the cymbals, so fine they look like scratches. Scarab with a left slash? Start with silence. Wave with a double dot? Hold your breath. Flute with a crescent underneath? You hum. Low, Nebu whispers. Like mourning a lost goose. This is now the part of the journey where you hum to a wall about a goose. You start slow, stumbling over the pattern like a toddler at a tap dance. Nebu claps offbeat encouragement while chewing something that may or may not be beetle jerky. Eventually you fall into a rhythm, not a song, exactly, but a cadence. A tempo. A heartbeat slowed to the ancient pace of desert time. The wall responds. Okay, not in the dramatic open sesame kind of way. But something clicks. Your body tingles. The air pulses once, like a sigh from the stone itself. And one of the wall panels swings open just a crack. Behind it, stairs. Because of course there are stairs. You descend. Each step feels older than the last. Not physically, though your knees disagree, but spiritually. As if you're walking into the memory of a story too tired to remember itself. The walls narrow. Your breath sounds loud. There's a strange comfort in the closeness, like being tucked inside a forgotten pocket of the world. At the base of the stairwell, you find a chamber filled with tablets, hundreds of them, stacked and sorted like someone's idea of fun was alphabetizing stone. You run your fingers over their surfaces. Most are cracked, some blank, but a few bear the familiar rhythm symbols. And on one tablet, larger than the others, set apart near a pool of stagnant water, you see something new. The Pharaoh's name. Tutankhamun. Yep. That one. Now here's where things get delightfully weird. This tablet doesn't glorify his rule or memorialize his lineage. No golden boasts. No divine metaphors. Instead, it's a diary entry. It reads, I cannot sleep. The drums continue. They come from the walls. The rhythm never ends. I speak it aloud, and still it echoes. I believe the code is watching me now. Tutankhamun. Sleepless. Haunted by his own language. You sit. You breathe. The idea rolls around in your tired brain. Historians still debate whether the boy king truly ruled or merely posed for gold masks and ominous murals. But if this tablet is real, it suggests something else. That he wasn't the master of the code. He was a victim of it. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the silence settle. The rhythmic marks drift through your mind like musical notes in a dream. You realize something. The code doesn't just hide information. It compels memory. It moves. The more you read it, the more you feel it echoing in your body, an internal metronome you didn't ask for but now can't shake. Even the air seems to breathe with you now. Nebu steps into the chamber. His voice is quiet. You heard it, didn't you? You nod. Then you're ready, he says. For what? He smiles again, a little sad this time. For the part where it starts following you back. And before you can ask what that means, he's already gone, vanished up the stairs like a desert hallucination in a very dusty bathrobe. You sit for a while longer, alone with the code, the king who couldn't sleep, and the growing thrum in your chest. Whatever the secret is, it's far from over. There's a strange hum in your ears as you leave the chamber. At first, you think it's the air or maybe just your own exhaustion singing lullabies through your skull. But no, it's the rhythm. The same subtle cadence you spoke into the wall. It's inside you now. Like a song that gets stuck in your head, except this one might be 3,000 years old and possibly cursed. You climb back into daylight, squinting as the sun ambushes your eyeballs with all the subtlety of a slap. Nebbia is gone. There's no sign he was ever there, except for a small token he left near the exit, a strip of linen, folded neatly, with a single symbol embroidered in gold thread. The scarab. Your old friend. You tuck the cloth into your bag and take one last look at the mural before heading off in the direction marked on the back of the pristine scroll. It's not a map, exactly, more like a suggestion. A poetic nudge. Where linen wraps whisper, the next breath waits. Which is not helpful at all, but it's not like you have another plan. By mid-morning, you arrive at a crumbling complex that once belonged to one of the lesser queens, Queen Neferibra, if the partially intact stone sign is to be believed. Not exactly front-page royalty, but still a VIP in her time. The place is eerily quiet, save for the occasional screech of a hawk overhead and the rustle of something small and definitely not snake-like. Probably. The outer rooms are mundane. Servants' quarters, grain storage, a hallway that smells like dust and long-forgotten perfumes. You run your fingers along the faded wall art, the colors sun-bleached into pale ghosts of what they once were. Until you enter what was likely the Queen's dressing room. There, on the walls and ceiling, is a mural unlike anything you've seen so far. At first glance, it looks decorative. Just another scene of noblewomen lounging and stylists fussing with braids. But then you notice the threads. Not actual threads, but painted ones. Dozens of lines, curling and crisscrossing between the women, connecting them like a loom. And every painted garment? Covered in glyphs. Tiny, meticulous, and bizarrely modern in design. The linen garments are embroidered with scarabs, yes, but also with unfamiliar variants of common glyphs. Twisted, compacted. Like they've been folded into themselves. You reach out and touch the wall. The texture of the paint is raised, layered over time. Someone came back here again and again, adding, correcting, refining. Beneath one of the painted robes, you find the flute symbol again. But this time, it's upside down and marked with a diagonal slash. A variant. A negative version? You remember Nebbia's words. Only if you sing it with your bones. Well, here's your linen sheet music. You rummage through the room and find remnants of real linen robes, crumpled and buried under dust. Most are beyond help, but one piece remains intact, a wide collar woven with threads of gold, blue, and faint purple. Someone stitched glyphs directly into the fabric using metallic thread, which is definitely overachieving by ancient standards. You lay it flat and compare it to the wall. It matches exactly. You're holding a copy of the painted garment. A real one. You look closer. The glyphs on the cloth follow a rhythm, not left to right, not up to down, but spiraling inward. A Fibonacci sequence of secret messages. And at the center of that spiral is something very odd. A star. Not the usual 5-pointed kind. This one has 7 points and an eye in the center. You stare at it too long, and it almost feels like it's blinking back. Suddenly you remember something from the first chamber, the carved line. He who hears the silent rhythm shall find the door. Maybe this is the next door. But if so, where's the wall? You hold the cloth up, turn slowly in the room, and that's when you feel it, a draft. Gentle. Steady. Not from a window. From the floor. You pull back a loose stone tile near the mural's edge and reveal a narrow crawl space lined with woven baskets and, bizarrely, shredded linen wrappings. Someone's laundry, maybe. Or, more likely, the remains of ceremonial garments. You slide inside, instantly regretting every snack you've eaten in the past decade. The crawl space leads downward, winding like a snake with commitment issues. After what feels like hours, but is probably 5 minutes, you drop into a small, candlelit room. No candles, though. Just strange glow from a shaft above. Bioluminescent fungus, maybe? Ancient Egyptian night lights? But then you see it, on a pedestal in the center, wrapped in pristine white linen, lies a figure. A mummy. But not your standard museum-style mummy with bits falling off and a general air of, "Please don't touch." This one looks recent. Restored. Reverent. And on the linen wrappings? That same spiral code. You move slowly, reverently, tracing your fingers around the body. At the heart of the spiral, once again, the 7-pointed star. You whisper the rhythm aloud. Not singing. Not speaking. Just humming. Mimicking the cadence from before. Low. Pause. High. Drop. Scarab. Wave. Flute. The wrappings shimmer slightly under the light. No movement, no special effects, but the air itself tightens. Something around you changes. And then, from beneath the wrappings, comes a sound. A single note. Clear. Hollow. Musical. You jump back. But the mummy doesn't move. Instead, something behind it opens, a panel sliding down to reveal another room. Another passage. Because of course it does. Inside the new chamber you find scrolls. Dozens of them. Shelved carefully in rows, each tied with twine and labeled, not with words, but symbols. You untie one. The language is dense, complex. But you recognize the patterns. This isn't a record. It's not a religious text. It's a guide. A manual. An instructional scroll for how to read the code. At the bottom, the scribe signs off. Let she who wears the words walk where others crawl. Let the linen be the skin, and the rhythm the breath. You realize something then. This isn't just a written code. It's a worn code. Queen Neferibra didn't just wear elegant robes, she wore language. A cipher sewn into fashion, stitched with secrets. Historians still debate whether Egyptian garments had symbolic functions beyond ritual. Some say it was all just ceremonial flair. Others suggest deeper meanings, status, belief, identity. But if what you're holding is real, it means they went a step further. They wore encrypted instructions. Messages designed to be seen by the right eyes, at the right angle, in the right light. And now, you're the one holding the thread. You fold the collar gently, carefully. You don't need to say anything. The air already knows. Somewhere ahead, the next piece of the code is waiting. And you're walking straight into it. The desert night returns with a velvet hush, cooler now, softening your bones and muffling the crunch of sand beneath your feet. You've wrapped Queen Neferibra's embroidered collar around your shoulder like a sash, unsure if you're honoring a sacred legacy or just making a bold-fashioned statement. Ahead, the landscape changes, no longer endless dunes, but low stone outcroppings, like the earth is trying to remember where it put something important. The map etched into the last scroll has brought you here, to a series of half-buried corridors descending into what was once a ceremonial complex. According to legend, well, according to the gossip carved on one of the old obelisks you passed, the architect responsible for this place was one of Pharaoh Jedkura's most prized builders. A man named Menhotep, known less for his stonework and more for his infuriating love of puzzles. The kind of guy who would hide a door in a wall behind a mural beneath a slab next to a riddle. So, naturally, this is going to be fun. The entrance isn't really an entrance. It's a flat wall of sandstone, covered in geometric designs. At first glance, you think it's just decorative. But then the rhythm kicks in again, the one you've been humming under your breath since section 2. Scarab. Wave. Flute. And the wall shifts. Not physically, but optically. Like your eyes are playing hopscotch. The geometric patterns begin to blur into recognizable shapes. A pair of crossed reeds, a rising sun, and beneath them, a stone doorway so perfectly camouflaged it might as well be wearing sunglasses. You press your palm to it and whisper the code. Not loudly. Just enough that the air hears you. It opens. Because of course it does. Inside is a corridor so narrow it makes your shoulders reconsider their life choices. The walls press in, not with malice, but with expectation, like a teacher waiting for you to show your work. You run your fingers along the grooves, and they pulse faintly with heat. The path ends at a chamber. And in the middle of the room? A model. An actual miniature layout of an entire pyramid complex carved from alabaster, just sitting there like an ancient version of IKEA's worst nightmare. But this isn't just an architectural model. It's a map. At each corner of the miniature, a symbol, scarab, wave, flute, and something new. A spiral. This time it doesn't curl inward, it radiates outward. A clue? Or a warning? You circle the model slowly, taking it in. The placement of symbols, the way they align with corridors, burial chambers, and ceremonial halls, it's a blueprint, yes. But it's also a riddle. You notice there are small holes drilled into parts of the model, almost like pipes. And sure enough, next to the table is a strange little instrument, part flute, part straw, part. What were they thinking? You pick it up. Hesitate. Blow gently into one of the holes. Nothing. Then you try again, this time using the rhythm. Low. High. Pause. Scarab. Wave. Flute. And something remarkable happens. A faint humming sound vibrates through the model, and one of the miniature pyramid's internal rooms lights up from within. You squint. Inside that tiny model room is a glyph you haven't seen before. A square, crossed with 4 lines, like a small cage, or a box. You try a second pattern. Another tone. Another room lights up. Another symbol. They're pieces. Clues hidden in acoustics. You're using a musical cipher to activate a physical map. Now here's the part where things start feeling weirdly modern. Historians still debate whether ancient Egyptian architects embedded sound-responsive elements into their structures. Some chalk the acoustics of temples up to coincidence. Others believe chambers were designed for resonance, amplifying chants, controlling the echo of ritual tones. But if this model is any proof, then Menhotep wasn't just designing temples. He was designing instruments. You hum again, carefully now, and the room fills with a low harmonic tone. The map shifts slightly. A panel beneath the model opens with a soft pop, and you find a small stone tablet inside. It's smooth, rectangular, engraved with just 3 things. A scarab. A spiral. And beneath them, the symbol of the sun crossing the horizon. Not a sunset. A sunrise. You know what that means. You need to visit the temple complex again. At sunrise. Because of course you do. You leave the chamber, tablet in hand, just as the stars begin to fade in the pre-dawn light. You walk for what feels like hours, backtracking over dunes and dusty trail markers, until the horizon begins to blush with gold. And there, at the temple's outer wall, you wait. As the first beam of sunlight stretches across the sand and touches the stone, you see it. A shadow. Not just any shadow, a symbol cast by the very architecture of the temple. The rising sun hits a carved notch, which casts the shape of a scarab onto the floor. Right where you're standing. The next moment is quiet. Still. Then you hear it. The click of a pressure plate. The whir of gears, long silent, now stretching after a 1,000-year nap. And a section of the wall slides open. Inside the new room is a stone bench. Above it, a wall covered in etched riddles. But this isn't standard hieroglyph stuff. No praise RA or don't steal from tombs. PSA. These are logic puzzles. One, in particular, grabs your attention. It reads, I speak in rhythm, but I am not voice. I mark beginnings, but I am not choice. You feel me once, and then you know. I am the path the Pharaohs chose. You don't need to say it aloud. The answer is breath. You exhale slowly. The riddle panel shudders, and a final piece of the puzzle reveals itself. A slab covered in what looks like musical notation. Ancient. Angular. Rhythm-based. The first full song written in code. Not a chant. Not a prayer. A score. A composition for decoding sacred space, performed not with instruments, but with footsteps, breath, and echo. A dance of presence. You realize then that Menhotep didn't just design with stone. He choreographed silence. And you're about to learn the steps. You step into the room with the musical slab, and everything feels still. Not empty. Not silent. Just still, like the moment before an orchestra begins to play, when everyone's waiting for the conductor's first breath. Only here, the orchestra is long dead, and the conductor might be buried under the room. The slab spans nearly the entire floor, raised slightly, polished smooth. At first, it looks like a decorative inlay, rows of strange geometric figures, patterns of circles, slashes, and what appear to be footprints. Not symbolic footprints, actual foot-shaped carvings. Because this is not just a musical score. It's a choreography. You stand at the edge of the slab. Each line of symbols starts with the scarab, followed by 3 lines of increasingly complex shapes, then ends with the wave symbol. The patterns repeat across the floor like a hymn in stone. You recognize the rhythm. You've felt it since the first scroll. Scarab. Wave. Flute. But now, there are steps. Literal ones. You match your feet to the first 2 carvings, heels together, toes slightly apart. Then the next, right foot forward, left foot angled behind. The third shape is strange, like you're supposed to pivot, mid-step, and twist slightly to the side. You do it. Nothing explodes. Always a good sign. You continue. 1 step, then 2. Then a pause. A breath. The rhythm you've been humming under your breath since the beginning becomes something you move through. You're walking the code. This chamber, this slab, it's not a message to be read. It's a message to be embodied. And suddenly you remember a passage from the scroll you found wrapped around the queen's linen collar. He who walks the breath shall open the rhythm. Let the bones hum the meaning. Which, at the time, you thought was just overly poetic nonsense. But now you get it. This was never about translating symbols into modern language. It was about understanding them through movement. You realize, the ancient scribes didn't just write and chant. They danced. Slowly. Deliberately. Steps woven into prayers, rituals encoded in physical motion. And you, sleepless, slightly sunburned, and probably very dehydrated, you're part of that tradition now. Congratulations. You've joined the world's oldest dance club. Halfway through the sequence, the room reacts. One of the wall panels glows faintly, a gold shimmer, like reflected firelight, though there's no flame in sight. You pause, hold your position, and hear a sound behind the wall. A thump. A click. Then silence. You finish the final steps, a spiral turn, then a bow. The floor beneath you gently lowers. Because of course it does. You descend slowly, the slab carrying you downward like a very polite elevator with no buttons. As you sink into the next chamber, you're enveloped by darkness, not oppressive, but soft. Warm. There's a scent in the air, old wood, dried honey, and maybe ink? The chamber is round. Circular shelves line the walls, and on each shelf are scrolls, wrapped tightly in cloth, sealed with wax. Not for reading. Not yet. In the center, a raised podium. And on it, something different. A disc. It's stone, etched with hundreds of tiny glyphs arranged in concentric circles. Like a Rosetta Stone had a child with a sundial. At the edge of the disc, you spot our now familiar cast of characters. Scarab. Wave. Flute. Spiral. But now there's a new symbol. A hand. Open palm, 5 fingers, each tipped with a tiny mark, sun, star, crescent, eye, and a seed. You reach out and gently touch the disc. The moment you do, a faint breeze stirs in the chamber. A whisper not made of words, but of feeling. Memory. A voice echoes, not spoken, but remembered. The hand holds what the mouth cannot say. The body holds what the mind cannot read. Another riddle? Or a teaching? You realize that each finger represents a method of understanding. Sun, sight. Star, sound. Crescent, rhythm. Eye, intuition. Seed, touch. This isn't just a code. It's a multisensory script. One that can't be read with eyes alone. One that needs to be seen, heard, moved, and felt. And you've already done most of that. You trace the spiral on the disc again, and the room shifts. Literally. The shelves around you rotate, slow and deliberate, revealing a second layer behind the scrolls, stone drawers, each marked with a different hand symbol. You open the one with the seed glyph. Inside is a fragment of cloth. Not linen this time. Papyrus, but braided. Softened, pressed, and embossed with faint glyphs that you can barely see, but can feel. You run your fingers over the raised patterns. And suddenly it makes sense. You can't see the message. You have to touch it. A braille-like system from millennia ago, used by scribes who passed knowledge without ever writing it in plain view. It wasn't just hidden. It was made to be felt. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians used touch-based cipher systems. Some point to embossed amulets, others to ceremonial tools with unusual textures. Most dismiss the idea entirely. But they probably didn't dance across a musical floor wearing a Queen's Code collar before opening a spinning memory vault, so, their loss. You read the embossed message with your fingers. The path leads not to power, but to knowing. The Pharaohs spoke not to rule, but to remember. The Pharaoh's code wasn't a secret to be hoarded. It was a memory structure, a mnemonic web of symbol, motion, and sensation. A system for passing wisdom in layers, some for the eye, some for the hand, some for the soul. And now it lives in you. You hold the papyrus to your chest, close your eyes, and let the rhythm rise again. The scarab moves. The wave rises. The flute sings. The spiral expands. And the hand, your hand, holds it all. You awaken the next morning with sand in your mouth, rhythm in your bones, and a deep suspicion that something has been laughing at you from behind the walls. You're back above ground, lying in the shade of a half-collapsed colonnade. The braided papyrus is still in your hand. You don't remember falling asleep, but somehow the dream kept going, symbols swirling, footsteps echoing, a whisper in your ear that sounded suspiciously like it said, "You missed a step." Not ominous at all. You sit up slowly, joints protesting, and notice something new. A chuckle. No, not yours. And not the wind either. A laugh, low and deliberate, bouncing through the stones. You follow the sound. The corridor narrows, then opens into a room unlike any you've seen so far. No golden idols. No rows of cryptic scrolls. Just murals. Rows of painted figures, frozen mid-motion, each one grinning ear to ear. Some are doubled over in laughter. One is pointing at another who's just slipped on what appears to be a ceremonial melon. You step closer. It's not a battle scene, not a royal procession. It's a comic strip. Yes. The ancient Egyptians had jokes. And this is their version of stand-up. One panel shows a priest tripping over a goat, with the caption, "And then R.A. said, 'Watch your step.'" Another shows a group of scribes arguing while a monkey in the background rearranges their scrolls into nonsense. And in the center of the mural, a larger-than-life figure in a gold mask, holding a palm leaf in one hand and a rubber duck? Okay, not a duck. Probably a goose. But still. The caption underneath reads, "He who cannot laugh at the glyphs shall be written out of the scroll." You burst into laughter before you can stop yourself. The echo bounces wildly, and the chamber seems to smile back. You're standing in what might be the first recorded comedy hall of the ancient world. And yes, there's a code here too. Not in the drawings. In the timing. Each panel has a sequence of marks carved along the bottom edge, not full hieroglyphs, but not random scratches either. You count them. 3 lines. A dot. Then a zigzag. Repeat. Scarab. Wave. Flute. Of course. The rhythm again. But this time, it's used to mark punchlines. You sit cross-legged in the middle of the room, decoding each panel. And here's where it gets wild. The rhythm-based code changes slightly from one mural to the next, shifting patterns based on the tone of the joke. The symbols stretch, slow down, repeat. You realize the code isn't just linguistic or musical, it includes emotion, timing, delivery. Ancient Egyptians understood comedic rhythm. The same symbols you danced to beneath the earth are now guiding you through a royal stand-up set. You turn to the last panel. It's empty. But carved beneath it, in perfectly spaced symbols. For the final laugh, you must bring your own. Cheeky. There's a plaque beside the door, disguised as part of the frame, but a little shinier, as if someone touched it more often than they should have. You wipe away dust and discover a glyph you've seen before, The open hand with the 5 icons. But the seed is replaced with a spiral. A spiral in motion. You press it. The wall behind the mural shifts. A low rumble. Dust falls like nervous dandruff from the ceiling. A section swings open, revealing stairs. Of course. Always with the stairs. This new staircase leads not down, but sideways. The air is warmer here, not ancient and entombed, but alive with movement. You follow the passage until it opens into a courtyard covered with colorful tiles, half exposed to the sun. The floor is patterned with the same symbols you've come to know: scarab, wave, flute, spiral, and now, laughter. Literal laughter. A glyph shaped like a wide-open mouth with ripples radiating out. You step onto the tile. And the tile sings. No, really. A low tone hums through your feet, and then the next tile pulses as if saying your move. You laugh. Because of course the joke room leads to a musical hopscotch courtyard. This is your life now. You dance across the courtyard, not with grace, not with style, but with commitment. The tiles light up as you move, responding to your rhythm. Not just where you step, but how. Your laugh blends with the sounds. The floor seems to encourage it. It's a test. Not of strength. Not of knowledge. But of joy. Because here's what you're learning. The code of the Pharaohs wasn't built to be oppressive. It wasn't a cryptic power grab wrapped in gold leaf. It was layered. Lyrical. Playful. Yes, there were symbols of rule, of judgment, of divinity, but there were also jokes. Mistakes carved in stone. Footnotes meant to be chuckled at. Songs that only worked if you hummed them through your nose while doing a weird sideways shuffle. Historians, bless them, still argue over whether ancient Egyptians had humor. Some claim the texts were too reverent for that. Others point to offhand graffiti, carvings of pharaohs with suspiciously long noses, temple guards depicted with crossed eyes, a papyrus with what may be the world's first sarcastic footnote. But none of them saw this room. This sacred hall of ridiculousness. You walk to the end of the courtyard, breathless, and find a low bench beneath a painted frieze. You sit. And there, carved into the stone beside you, is a quote from someone named Hina, an ancient court jester whose name was lost to time. Until now. A secret told without a smile is not worth keeping. Laughter is the breath of the code. And if you can't dance, at least trip with grace. You lean back against the warm stone, letting that sink in. The code isn't just about memory. It's about feeling. Not fear. Not control. But joy. And the deeper you go, the more the code unfolds like a story told by a friend who occasionally breaks into dance just to make you laugh. You smile, eyes half closed, listening to the faint hum in the floor fade to silence. You're ready. By now you've laughed with the dead, danced across a singing floor, and hummed your way through walls. So it's only fair that the next part of your journey involves a royal scandal that was so thoroughly erased from history, even the pigeons seem nervous around it. You find yourself back in one of the temple's quieter corridors, stone cool underfoot, hieroglyphs watching you from the walls with the kind of silent judgment that says, you're about to find something you really shouldn't. Perfect. You reach a sealed doorway, marked with a peculiar symbol, not a name, not a royal title, but an absence. A cartouche, the name ring used for kings and queens, completely scratched out. Chiseled clean. Whoever lived behind this door was meant to be forgotten. Naturally you go in. The room beyond is modest. No treasure. No throne. Just a bed-shaped platform, a broken mirror, and the lingering smell of desert herbs and ink. On the far wall, a tapestry. Woven linen, brittle and faded with time, but somehow still intact. You step closer. At first, it seems like decorative embroidery, a pattern of lotuses and stars. But then your eyes adjust, and you see the spiral. Not decorative. Deliberate. You run your fingers along the stitches. Scarabs. Waves. Flutes. And at the bottom corner of the fabric, almost too faint to see, is a symbol you've never encountered before. A mirror. But not just a handheld cosmetic thing. It's shown reflecting something impossible. A sun with two shadows. You blink. Because that doesn't make sense. Unless it's symbolic. You sit cross-legged on the cool floor, the tapestry spread before you like a coded bedtime story. This is where the scrolls, and your trusty friend Rhythm, finally tell you her name. Daughter of the line, spoken not written. She who bore the double sun. Princess Meketra, the one they erased. Ah. There it is. Meketra. A royal daughter who, for reasons not yet clear, was wiped from every official record. No statues. No burial rites. Just this room, hidden behind a courtyard of laughter. You begin to piece together her story, not from narrative, but from repetition. Her name appears in fragments, in rhymed glyphs, tucked into corners of the tapestry. She wasn't exiled. She exiled herself. According to the stitched code, Meketra discovered something forbidden. Not a weapon. Not a treasure. A message. Buried beneath temple scripts, etched into the foundation blocks of the palace, she found the code. The true code. And unlike her father, the pharaoh of her time, she didn't want to hoard it. She wanted to teach it. To anyone. To everyone. Her plan? To encode the rhythm into clothing. Into games. Into stories. So that even the children of slaves would unknowingly carry the wisdom of kings in their lullabies and nursery rhymes. She wanted knowledge to outlast the throne. But the court didn't like that. And so, the name Meketra was scraped from every wall. Except here. You look again at the embroidery. This time, the pattern becomes clearer. It's not just decorative, it's a cipher wheel. The same design repeated across the cloth, shifting slightly each time. The lotus petals align with glyphs. The stars match syllables. It's rotational. Each loop of the pattern adds a layer of meaning. You realize this is what she created. A living code. Something not just to read, but to wear, to spin, to tell. The mirror glyph appears again at the top, now paired with a scarab. Beneath it a riddle. I show two suns but shine no light. I hold no truth, yet reveal all sight. What am I? You answer aloud before thinking. A story. The tapestry trembles. No wind. No movement. Just a ripple in the linen like it breathed for the first time in centuries. You touch the spiral again, and feel it give. Behind the tapestry is another doorway. Inside is a room barely big enough to stand. But on its walls? Paintings. Not murals, actual paintings. Rendered with care and detail you haven't seen elsewhere. Each one depicts a scene from daily life. A child tracing lines in the dirt with their toe. A woman carving something into a pot rim. A market vendor singing a song with glyphs hidden in the rhythm. A wedding dance, steps forming a spiral across the sand. Meketra's code. Everywhere. Disguised as normal life. She had no army. No throne. just the rhythm. And she used it to lace knowledge through the cracks of society like wind through papyrus, unseen, but unmistakable. You step closer to one painting, of Mekhtra herself. Or rather, a young woman with a crown made of reeds and a robe embroidered with the now familiar 5 symbols: scarab, wave, flute, spiral, mirror. She looks out at you, lips curved into a smile that says, "You finally found me." And at her feet? A set of footprints. Not painted. Carved. You match your own feet to them, just as you did in the musical chamber. And the rhythm begins again. Not sung. Not spoken. Just remembered. Historians will still argue. Some say Mekhtra never existed. Others believe she was a fabrication to scare the priesthood into obedience. A cautionary tale. But you've walked her rhythm. You've heard her echo. You've stood where she once encoded a legacy not into scrolls, but into life. You press your palm to the wall beside her image. It opens. Because it must. Because you're not following a trail anymore. You're continuing it. The passage behind Mekhetra's chamber slopes downward, not a stair, not a ramp, but something in between. The walls are smooth, unmarked, and warmer than stone has any right to be. As you descend, the rhythm inside you shifts. It's subtle, but you feel it. Scarab. Wave. Flute. Spiral. But now, there's a hesitation. A gap. Like a breath being held. The air smells different, too. Less like dust and parchment, more like ink. Ancient ink. Sharp, metallic. Alive. When you reach the bottom, the space opens into a circular room. Not large, not ornate. But entirely covered, floor to ceiling, in writing. Every inch. Every surface. Thousands of glyphs, painted in thin black strokes, arranged in dizzying spirals that start at your feet and climb the walls like ivy. It's overwhelming. But also, inviting. Like a letter written just for you. At the center of the chamber is a table. Well, a plinth. But it's not made of stone. It's wood. Old, yes, but not ancient. You walk slowly toward it, and there on the surface, laid out in perfect sequence, is a feast. Not of food. Of symbols. Tiny tablets, each no larger than a coin, arranged in concentric circles. Scarab. Wave. Flute. Spiral. Mirror. And new ones. A sleeping eye. A hand holding a feather. A heartbeat. A flame inside a jar. You reach down and pick up one of the tokens. It's heavier than it looks. You flip it over, and realize something startling. The back has your own name carved into it. Or rather, a glyph you now recognize as you. You blink. Your name doesn't exist in this language. But this symbol, the combination of footstep, breathmark, spiral, and star, it means you. It means someone knew you'd come. You look at the other tokens. They're not instructions. They're identities. Names not of people, but of roles. One reads, "The listener of the fifth echo." Another, "He who reads the flame." A third, "She who never wakes." You begin to understand. These are the names of interpreters. People who carried the rhythm, not in scrolls, but in memory. In movement. In breath. You place your token back into its circle and watch as the lines on the floor react. Yes, the floor. The painted glyphs ripple outward, and for a brief moment, the whole chamber hums like a struck tuning fork. Then it stops. A section of the wall slides away, revealing a narrow hallway lit by some unseen glow. You follow it. Because by now, what else would you do? The hallway leads to a small antechamber. The walls here are blank. All except one, where a single message has been carved in large, careful strokes. When the scribes grew weary, they placed the truth inside a feast. That which fed the body would carry the mind. Look not in libraries, but in kitchens. You squint. Because that can't mean what it sounds like. Right. You turn to the only other object in the room, a rectangular stone chest. Inside, bowls, plates, spoons, each one carved with symbols, not decorative ones, but active glyphs. Rhythm markers. You pick up a bowl and read the rim. Scarab, chews slowly. Wave, breathe before swallowing. Flute, hum after every bite. Oh no. They didn't. They did. The ancient Egyptians had a culinary code. You sit down hard. It makes sense in the weirdest way. If you wanted to pass knowledge in a time when scrolls burned and murals were defaced, what better vessel than a meal? Recipes that weren't just sustenance, but sequence. Bread shaped to hold rhythm. Bowls carved with pace cues. Dances performed as cooking rituals. Each bite a memory. Each swallow a stanza. This wasn't just culture. It was encoding. Historians have always speculated about ceremonial meals, feasts tied to the stars, offerings to the gods, celebratory dishes for the Nile's flooding. But no one suspected the meals themselves were text. You run your hand along the inside of one bowl and feel tiny ridges, glyphs meant not to be read, but felt by fingers dipped in olive oil or pomegranate glaze. They would prepare a dish. Serve it in this bowl. And the one who ate it would read the message through touch and taste. Food as language. Food as memory. You reach into the bottom of the chest and find one last item. A jar. Small, lidded, sealed with wax. You crack it open gently. Inside is something that looks like honey, but thicker. Darker. You dip a finger. Taste it. Immediately, your mouth floods with flavor, dates, spice, salt, something herbal and slightly bitter. And rhythm. No joke. You feel it. The taste follows the pattern. Sweet. Pause. Tang. Heat. Silence. You swallow. And in your mind, the symbols align. The chamber tilts. Not physically, but your understanding does. The scarab isn't just a symbol of rebirth. It's digestion. The wave isn't just the Nile. It's swallowing. The flute isn't just sound. It's the hum of the body as it recognizes itself. The spiral is hunger, motion, desire. The mirror is the moment you recognize a flavor that shouldn't exist anymore. The code is alive inside you. You stagger back, breath sharp, eyes wide. You've eaten the message. You've become part of it. And suddenly you realize, this is why the code lasted. Not because it was buried. Not because it was hidden. But because it was shared. In stories. In laughter. In movement. And now, even in food. The Pharaohs, for all their gold and glory, didn't just build monuments. They built recipes. And they trusted that those who truly listened would one day find the rhythm. In breath. In step. In bite. And that those who found it would never be truly alone again. The sweetness of the code still lingers on your tongue as you walk, slow and mindful, through the soft corridors of morning light. Your footsteps echo with an awareness that wasn't there before. Like the stones recognize you now, not by name, but by flavor. You've eaten their secrets. You've hummed their rhythms. You've laughed at their punchlines and stepped through their silences. So when the next chamber greets you not with grandeur but with stillness, it feels right. You find yourself standing before a low archway, half swallowed by sand and time. No grand glyphs mark its threshold. No golden god peeks down from above. Just a single line carved at shin level, so low you almost miss it. We are not kings. We are the ones who remember. That's your invitation. You step inside. The air grows cool again, thick with quiet. And then you see them. Rows of low sarcophagi, each carved not with royal names or battle boasts, but with questions. Not titles. Riddles. The first one reads, "What has no tongue yet teaches speech? What holds no mind yet reshapes memory?" Below it, a spiral glyph, followed by the mirror, and the mark for the heartbeat. Another. "What dies yet lives in breath? What cannot speak, but must be heard?" Scarab. Wave. Flute. Silence. You walk slowly, reverently. These are not tombs for the powerful. They're tombs for the interpreters, the listeners, the dancers, the ones who wore the code not in crowns or rings but in rhythm, in story, in footstep and echo. Each sarcophagus is marked with the 5-glyph rhythm you've followed since the beginning: scarab, wave, flute, spiral, mirror, but in different arrangements. Variations. Voices. Each one a unique melody. Each one a keeper of the song. One tomb is different. Set deeper in the floor. Unmarked by name. Instead, its lid is adorned with a carved hand, open, relaxed, fingers outstretched. At the tip of each finger is one of the 5 core symbols. Sun, star, crescent, eye, seed. You remember the disk. The chamber. The voice that whispered. The hand holds what the mouth cannot say. You kneel beside it, run your palm over the stone. It's warm. You feel a vibration beneath the surface. Not mechanical. Not magical. Musical. You press your hand against it, finger to finger, palm to palm. And the rhythm begins again. But this time, not as steps. As memory. The chamber dims. Your eyes close. Not by choice, but gently, as though the tomb is covering them with its own hand. And in that darkness you see it. A long hall. A gathering. Not of royalty, but of scribes and dancers, cooks and children, grandmothers and flute makers. Each one humming. Moving. Telling. The code wasn't just a secret. It was a community. A shared pulse that moved through generations. It had to be disguised, because power feared what it could not control. But it was never meant to be forgotten. And now, because of you, it won't be. You open your eyes. The tomb is still. The sarcophagus still closed. But your hand now bears something new. Faintly traced in dust or sweat or spirit, you can see the glyph for echo on your palm. A mark not carved, not inked, but understood. You don't wipe it away. You stand. The air is different now. The rhythm isn't pulsing from the walls anymore. It's inside you. As you leave the tomb, you pass one last carving. Small. Almost shy. A final message written in a script that blends old and new glyphs in a way you now understand without translation. To be remembered, you must first remember. Not the names. Not the rulers. But the rhythm. The laughter. The bite. The breath. And beneath it, A tiny, quiet glyph. The symbol for sleep. You smile. Because finally you understand. Even the pharaohs knew that the deepest knowledge should lull you into stillness. The journey leads you now to the water. Not to some scenic bankside picnic, no. This is ancient Egypt's version of a final level. And it's hidden not behind walls or under tombs, but beneath the Nile itself. Of course it is. You arrive at the river's edge just before dusk. The light turns everything gold, water, sand, even the reeds seem dipped in molten brass. The air hums softly, but you know by now, that's not nature. It's the code. It's always the code. There's a small structure near the shoreline, half drowned, barely visible under a mess of papyrus plants. It looks like a shrine, but plainer. No statues, no guards, not even a snake pretending to be sacred. You wade through knee-deep water, sandals soaked and dignity optional, until you reach the door. At its center is the symbol of the wave. Familiar by now. But this one's different. It's carved not as a glyph, but as a handle. You grip it. Pull. The water churns around your ankles as the shrine groans open. Inside, darkness. But not the heavy kind. This is moving darkness. Wet, echoing, rippling. A spiral staircase leads down into the earth. No torches, no windows. Just the feeling of descending into memory itself. So you do what you've always done. You go in. The air changes as you descend. Cool, yes, but also fluid. The walls are slick with condensation. Every breath you take feels like sipping mist. You count the steps in rhythm. 1, pause, 2, 3, breath. Scarab. Wave. Flute. The staircase ends at a small landing. And ahead? Water. A shallow pool, stone-bordered, glimmering faintly under a light source you can't identify. There's no flame. No torch. And yet the room glows. You step to the edge of the pool. Inscribed around the rim are familiar figures. But this time they're wrong. Or rather, they move. The glyphs ripple. You rub your eyes, thinking you've gone full tomb crazy. But no, they're shifting. Slowly. Repeating a cycle. Scarab. Then wave. Then flute. Then spiral. Then mirror. Then the scarab returns, but its legs are longer. It's shell-dented. A new symbol. You realize the pool isn't just water. It's a reflection engine. A live translation. The room has become an instrument. You step carefully into the pool. The water is warm, startlingly so. Not bath warm. Blood warm. It clings to your skin like memory. You take a slow breath. And the rhythm takes over. You're no longer walking through history. You're floating within it. The walls around the pool flicker, displaying not murals, but motion. Scenes rendered in liquid glyphs. A young girl, Meketra, sits in a garden, tracing spiral patterns on her sandals. A cook sings while shaping bread into tiny waves. A child pretends to be a scribe, but the scroll is just a cabbage leaf covered in honey. A jester falls off a stool while trying to imitate a pharaoh's voice, and everyone laughs, including the pharaoh. It's not just stories. It's memories. Encoded. Preserved. Playing now because you've entered the water. The pool, you realize, is the final layer of the code. A living archive. The scribes didn't just write on stone or papyrus. They wrote in movement, in flavor, in footsteps. And here they wrote in water. Liquid memory, stored in the architecture of motion, rhythm, and breath. Not frozen. Always shifting, because memory isn't static. You reach toward one of the moving glyphs. It pauses beneath your hand. The wave. It ripples into your palm. Suddenly, you're there, kneeling beside a priestess who teaches by touching symbols onto a student's back. Each tap a syllable. Each stroke a breath. She whispers, "If it doesn't move, it isn't alive. If it doesn't change, it isn't true." Then it fades. And you're back in the pool. Breathing. Watching. Changed. You understand now why the code was feared. Because it refused to stay still. It couldn't be controlled. It changed shape to match its listener. If a child found it, it became a game. If a priest found it, it became a chant. If a queen found it, it became a collar. And if a cook found it, it became dinner. And now? You found it. And it became you. You move through the water, hand gliding across each surface of the pool. The glyphs rise and fall in waves beneath your touch. You're not deciphering anymore. You're remembering. The code isn't a thing you study. It's a presence you carry. And as you reach the far side of the chamber, a narrow archway opens soundlessly. This is the final passage. Not a room. Not a tomb. But a dream. One you've already begun. The archway opens into nothing. No torches, no glyphs, no echo. Just a hallway so quiet it feels padded. Like the world has thrown a heavy blanket over your senses and said, "SHHH, this part's important." You hesitate. Because it feels different now. You're not being pulled forward by mystery or nudged by rhythm. You're being invited. And when you cross the threshold, it doesn't feel like entering a room. It feels like falling asleep. The walls around you melt from stone to dream. Not metaphorically. Literally. Shapes drift past you, half familiar, half impossible. A spiral of lotus petals floating through mist. A doorway that blinks then fades. A hand of sand reaching out, only to crumble before touching yours. The path becomes soft underfoot, pillows of soundless rhythm. And somewhere in the far-off hush you hear it. Breathing. Not yours. Slow. Measured. Endless. You follow it. You're no longer sure where you are. Not geographically. Not even physically. It's a space between memory and sleep. The liminal hallway between what was and what could be. And at the end of that passage you find a chamber. But there are no walls. No ceiling. Just a bed of white sand beneath a sky made of ink. And in the center? A sarcophagus. Massive. Or perhaps, weightless. You approach slowly. It doesn't feel ominous. It feels tired. Like something very old has been waiting for you to arrive before it could finally rest. You kneel beside the sarcophagus. The lid is translucent, quartz, maybe, but glowing from within. And inside? The Pharaoh. But not as you expected. This Pharaoh isn't armored in gold or wrapped in endless linen. He's lying on his side. Eyes closed. Breathing deeply. His chest rises and falls with a rhythm you know better than your own heartbeat. Scarab. Wave. Flute. Spiral. Mirror. Repeat. This Pharaoh never died. He dreamed. And the code? It was his dream. You sit beside the sarcophagus in silence for a long time. It could be minutes. It could be years. Time here is soft, and honestly, not super interested in accuracy. Around you, the symbols begin to rise from the ground, not drawn, but formed in air, like fireflies blinking out glyphs. They don't speak. They hum. You close your eyes, and for the first time in this entire journey, you don't try to translate. You just listen. And in that silence, you finally understand. The code was never meant to be solved. It was meant to be felt, lived, whispered, remembered. It was a dream passed from breath to breath, from dancer to cook, from jester to queen, from child to star. And you? You were never an outsider. You've been walking in that dream all along. The Pharaoh stirs slightly. Not awake. Just shifting in sleep. And the humming slows. You place your hand gently on the sarcophagus. No symbols appear. No doors open. But something inside you expands. A space. A stillness. A knowing. You stand. And the dream begins to dim. Not end. Just quiet. Like the last note of a song that keeps echoing even after your ears can no longer catch it. You turn back toward the archway. But it's not there anymore. Just sand beneath your feet. And a breeze that carries the rhythm away like ash. Somewhere in the sky above, a constellation blinks into place. Scarab, wave, flute, spiral, mirror. And beneath them, a sixth star. You. When you open your eyes again, the world feels heavier. Not burdensome, just more present. As if every grain of sand now contains a sentence, every gust of wind a verse. You're back in the waking world, standing at the edge of the Nile. The shrine behind you has vanished beneath the water's edge. Or maybe it never existed above it. No matter. You carry it now. The rhythm doesn't pulse from walls or bowls or flute notes anymore. It lives in your breath. And when you exhale, the air around you seems to shift in time. Scarab. Wave. Flute. Spiral. Mirror. Breathe in. Step forward. Because there's still one layer of the code left to uncover, and it's wrapped in silk and footwork and fanfare. The Pharaohs, for all their secrets, were never above a good party. You arrive at what remains of an old temple's outer courtyard, flat and wide, hemmed in by low columns and the scent of date blossoms carried on lazy wind. It looks abandoned. But only if you don't know what you're looking at. There's a faint imprint in the stone. A circle. Then another. Then 6 more, in perfect rhythm, like footprints baked into time. You follow them. At the center of the courtyard is a wide square platform. And carved into its edge, barely visible under time's wear, are words that make your heart skip. To crown the living, the dead must dance. Of course they must. You climb the platform and look around. Nothing moves. Until you do. One step. Another. Then the rhythm returns, low and soft. Not in the air, but in your muscles. In your knees. Your shoulders. Your ribs. The wind swells as you move. It nudges you gently, like a dance partner with impeccable timing. You spin. And the courtyard answers. The slabs around you shift, not physically, but with memory. You see flashes now, overlaid on the present like a translucent film. A woman twirling in a robe embroidered with stars, her feet touching carved spirals. A child clapping in time with a circle of priests who sway like reeds in slow wind. A man, maybe a cook, maybe a scribe, striking a rhythm on a ceramic bowl while dancers trace patterns in sand. They're not celebrating. They're writing. This isn't performance. It's documentation. You remember the glyphs, scarab, wave, flute, but there was always movement. In the food, yes. In the breath. But here? In ceremony. The pharaohs embedded their code in public rituals. Weddings. Inaugurations. Blessings of the Nile. You start to see the shape of it. Each ritual was a loop, a story told in motion. The steps of the dancers mirrored sentence structure. The twirls? Punctuation. The claps? Emphasis. Every flourish of a fan was a conjunction. Every time kneel a verb. And the best part? Everyone saw it, but only a few read it. You walk the full perimeter of the platform. At each corner is a small depression in the stone, once sockets for poles or torches, maybe. But more likely, cue markers. Someone once directed this. Not a choreographer, exactly, but a keeper of the rhythm. A conductor. Not of music. Of code. Historians still argue whether Egyptian dances were truly ritual, or just elaborate celebrations. They note the symmetrical stages, the identical steps performed over generations, but few noticed the repeated errors. One dancer always turned left instead of right at the sixth beat. One always dropped their arms just before the final bow. What if they weren't errors? What if they were glyphs? The body as language, the crowd as readers. The code, disguised as joy. You find a carving beneath the platform, shielded from sun and weather. Inside a recessed panel are 4 dancers, their limbs forming shapes you've now come to recognize not as movement, but syntax. Each pose is paired with a symbol. A scarab spinning beneath raised arms. A flute hovering over a bent knee. A spiral drawn by circling fingers. A mirror balanced on the head, reflecting the sun. And beneath them. Only in celebration will they forget to notice. And so, they will remember. You sit there a long time. Reading not the words. But the intention. This isn't just a final clue. It's a warning. The code wasn't buried. It was disguised in plain sight. Danced at coronations. Sung at harvests. Taught to children as games. Woven into ceremonies so colorful, so joyful, that the message inside could slip by unnoticed. And still reach the next generation. You rise. You feel the wind in your arms. The dust under your toes. You don't need an audience. You don't need music. The rhythm is already here. You begin to move, slow, deliberate, almost sleepy. You let your breath shape your steps. You turn once, twice, then hold still. And when you do, you hear it. Not in your ears. In your bones. The code approves. The courtyard fades behind you, the dust of centuries trailing in soft spirals at your heels. The dance is still in your bones, each step a whisper of glyphs now etched into your muscles. You move not as a traveler anymore, not even as a seeker. You move like a scribe with no scroll. Because the code has passed through your breath, your touch, your laughter. And now, it leads you to its final keeper. Not the first pharaoh. Not the loudest. But the last to try to preserve the code, not through concealment, but through consequence. The pharaoh who sealed it all away. You arrive at a cliff's edge, sheer rock, red with sunset, overlooking the bend of the Nile where it splits in 3. Below, barely visible through the haze, are ruins half buried in silt. The kind of place maps forget. The kind of place memory avoids. There's no obvious entrance. But you find it. Because you're not looking with your eyes. You're listening. The wind is humming again. Low. Pausing. Then high. Scarab. Wave. Flute. You kneel near a jagged outcrop, and there it is, a groove shaped not like a keyhole, but like a breath. You exhale into it. Gently. And the rock opens. Because of course it does. The descent is narrow. Tight. Your shoulders brush against stone walls slick with time. Each step down is muffled, like walking deeper into your own chest. When the passage widens, you find yourself in a room so quiet it forgets to echo. This is the sealed tomb. And in the center of it, resting atop a slab of black basalt, is a sarcophagus wrapped in something unlike linen. Something smoother. Not cloth. Not leather. A layer of what appears to be hardened resin, clear, amber, threaded with tiny glyphs. It's like the pharaoh was wrapped in memory itself. You approach. And the chamber shifts. The walls around you begin to glow, not with torches or magic, but with heat. Heat made by breath. Yours. And slowly, the resin melts. Layer by layer, the glyphs dissolve into the air like steam, forming tendrils of rhythm you've followed all this time. The sarcophagus opens. And inside lies the pharaoh. Old. Peaceful. Unspeakably tired. In one hand, a scroll. In the other, a mirror. You take the scroll first. The surface is soft, pliable. It bends easily in your fingers. But the writing? Gone. Erased. Scrubbed clean. Just faint impressions left behind. Because this scroll was not for reading. It was for remembering. You lift the mirror. It's not polished metal or obsidian like others you've seen. It's water. Somehow, held perfectly within a frame of gold, unmoving, yet not frozen. You look in. And you see not your face. But the same 5 symbols. Scarab. Wave. Flute. Spiral. Mirror. Only now, each one floats across your reflection, sinking and rising like breath. And then, a 6th. A new glyph. The final glyph. A circle. Open at the top. Incomplete. You trace it with your finger, and the water shivers. Beneath it appears a line. I have remembered you. You're not sure who the I is. The pharaoh? The code? The memory of memory? Does it matter? Because you feel it now. The code hasn't been hiding. It's been waiting. For you to remember it. And now you do. Historians still search for the final cipher, some lost Rosetta Stone, some perfect tablet, some master key to unlock the mysteries of hieroglyphs. But they don't know what you know. There is no master key. There is only motion. There is only breath. There is only the rhythm that wraps itself around laughter, around dinner, around mourning and celebration and bedtime and breath. The pharaohs weren't hiding something. They were trying to save it. From time. From forgetting. From silence. And now, because you walked the steps, hummed the tones, and heard the echo, the rhythm lives again. You bow before the sarcophagus. Not out of reverence, but in thanks. Then you rise and walk slowly to the edge of the tomb. A narrow path opens before you, smooth stone leading upward. Not into daylight, but into the memory of daylight. You ascend through silence. Not the hushed awe of a tomb. Not the reverent quiet of a sacred chamber. But the kind of silence that comes after the final page has turned. When the story hasn't ended, it's just waiting for you to decide what to do with it. The path is smooth beneath your feet. The stone glows faintly now, not with magic or firelight, but with memory, reflected back at you in soft pulses. You don't need to guide your steps. The code does that now. Scarab. Wave. Flute. Spiral. Mirror. Circle. You don't hum it anymore. You are it. When you reach the top of the passage, the surface greets you with warm dusk and a slow-moving wind. The Nile glows bronze. The world stretches wide. For the first time in hours, or centuries, you feel your shoulders relax. You step into an open clearing you somehow didn't see before. Flat, smooth, ringed by low stones and 5 standing pillars, each carved with a single symbol. You already know them. You walk to the center. And there, etched into the stone, is the 6th pillar. The one without a glyph. It's smooth. Empty. Waiting. You kneel beside it. And in your mind, the final dream begins. It's not a vision. It's not a hallucination. It's not a prophecy. It's a memory that isn't yours, except it somehow always was. You see the Pharaoh in his final days, not sick, not fading, but thinking. A ruler of vast lands, surrounded by gods carved into every wall, and yet he worried not about legacy, but about language. He saw what the priests didn't. He saw what even the scribes refused to write. That knowledge, when bound too tightly, vanishes. That when you clutch something with power, it slips through your fingers. That secrets, when buried too deep, rot instead of root. So he made a choice. He took the code, and he unwound it. He didn't hide it in one place. He scattered it. Into rhythm. Into food. Into dance. Into laughter. Into mirrors. Into names so soft, they were sung in baby sleep and market songs and festival chants, until no one remembered who wrote them, only that they made people feel safe. The code became not a cipher, but a feeling. And in his last breath, he dreamt of someone. Not of blood. Not of birthright. But of memory. Someone who would find the scarab in the soil. The wave in the bread. The flute in the silence. The spiral in the linen. The mirror in the dark. The circle in themselves. And that someone was you. You open your eyes. Back in the clearing. The wind is still. The pillars silent. You place your palm on the 6th empty one. And slowly, so slowly, you feel the glyph rise beneath your skin. Not carved. Not drawn. Just understood. It's not a scarab. It's not a symbol. It's not even a word. It's a breath. A circle that never closes. Because the rhythm was never meant to end. It loops. It lives. In you. You stand. The pillars hum softly. No doors open. No scrolls appear. But the wind carries a sound you recognize. Laughter. Distant. Ancient. Relieved. And finally, you let yourself rest. Not because the journey is over, but because it goes on now without you. In every hand that dances a little before cooking. In every child who hums nonsense before sleep. In every dream where you hear a flute, and you don't know why, but you smile. You lie back in the sand. And the stars arrange themselves into the only sentence you'll ever need. To be forgotten is nothing. To remember is everything. Your eyes grow heavy. The breeze returns. A rhythm you don't need to follow anymore. Because you've become it. Because you've kept the dream alive. Because now, it's time to sleep.